Welcome back to WION World is One. Thank you so much for staying with us. My name is Hema Korsara and here's a look at all the top stories that we've lined up for you on Speed News today. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said that no arrangement or commitment had been made to resume nuclear negotiations with the United States amid heightened tensions following attacks by Israel and the United States on the Iranian territory. In an interview with state broadcaster, Araghchi said the possibility of restarting talks was under consideration, but would depend on whether Tehran's national interests were protected. Araghchi accused the US of betraying Iran during previous rounds of negotiations on reviving the 2015 nuclear deal and lifting US sanctions. The Iranian diplomat also confirmed that a law suspending cooperation with the IAEA was binding after being passed by Parliament and approved by the Guardian Council, a top constitutional oversight body. Araghchi also said that the damage caused by the 12-day war with Israel was serious and that experts from the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran were conducting a detailed assessment. The leader of Lebanon's Hezbollah group, Naim Qassem, has declared that Israel's recent attacks on Iran have completely failed in achieving their objectives. Speaking in a televised address, he said that Iran had emerged victorious from the war. According to Qassem, the tentative ceasefire that took effect on Tuesday is seen as a direct result of Iran's resilience. The Palestinian death toll in Gaza has risen to 56,259, with 132,458 injured since the latest conflict between Hamas and Israel began. In the past 24 hours, Israeli attacks have claimed 103 Palestinian lives and injured 219 others. A recent Israeli airstrike in Deir al-Balah killed at least 18 people, including on-duty police and security personnel, and injured many civilians. The Palestinian Interior Ministry in Gaza has condemned the attack. The incident occurred near a flour distribution center in central Gaza. No response has been reported from the Israeli side regarding the incident. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio will host a crucial meeting with the foreign ministers of the Quad nations, Australia, India and Japan on the 1st of July. The goal is to strengthen initiatives ensuring a free and open Indo-Pacific region. This meeting builds on the momentum from the previous Quad ministerial meeting in January, where the four countries recommitted to working together to counter China's growing power. Russia captured two settlements in eastern Donetsk region over the past 24 hours while striking Ukrainian air defense radars, drone production facilities, storage depots and ammunition warehouses across 152 locations. While Ukraine's commander-in-chief Alexander Syrsky confirmed the Russian offensive in Sumy was effectively contained. Ukraine's military reported striking 11 concentrations of Russian personnel and equipment, destroying one artillery system and one key enemy object. It said its forces repelled multiple Russian assaults and 79 combat clashes along the front lines. Russia and Ukraine have conducted another prisoner exchange, marking the 7th swap since their talks in Istanbul on the 2nd of June. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, the exchange involved returning Russian servicemen from Ukrainian-controlled territory and handing over Ukrainian prisoners of war. However, the exact number of prisoners released wasn't disclosed. During their latest round of talks in Istanbul, Russia and Ukraine agreed to an all-for-all exchange involving seriously ill and wounded prisoners as well as soldiers under the age of 25. The prisoner swap comes despite ongoing fighting and a lack of progress in ending the war. University students and professors marched to the Ministry of Education in Buenos Aires holding torches and candles against budget cuts by President Javier Milei. Protesters are carrying out 48-hour strike and march to the Ministry of Education headquarters. Many of the demonstrators were scientists from the National Scientific and Technical Research Council, who say the investment in science and technology has plummeted to unprecedented lows. The science and technology budget decreased from 0.3% of the GDP in 2023 to 0.21% in 2024 and is projected to reach 0.15% in 2025. According to the EPC group, this drastic reduction has led to hundreds of scientists being laid off from research centers. Many have left the country to work abroad, fearing a brain drain like during the 2001 crisis. In its first execution since 2022, Japan has accused a man dubbed the Twitter Killer, who was convicted of murdering and dismembering 9 people, mostly women, after contacting them on Twitter in 2017. This is the first use of capital punishment in the country in nearly 3 years. Detailing the modus operandi of Shiraishi, investigators said he approached the victims via Twitter, offered to assist them with their suicidal wishes. He killed the 8 women, including teenagers, after raping them. Also killed a boyfriend of one of the women to silence him. Shiraishi was hanged at the Tokyo detention house in high secrecy, with nothing disclosed until the execution was carried out. His execution comes as calls grow to abolish capital punishment in Japan. Guatemala and the United States signed a joint security partnership agreement aimed at strengthening capabilities against transnational threats. U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security Christine Noem and Guatemalan Minister of Governance Francisco Jimenez announced the cooperation deal, which focuses on combating illicit trafficking networks and enhancing operational and logistical capabilities between both countries. The agreement includes several key components, that is, enhanced operational and logistical collaboration to combat illicit trafficking, implementation of anti-narcotics border patrols, and the reactivation of joint Army National Civil Police patrols. Particularly in border area, it was the last stop in Noem's Central American tour, following visits to Costa Rica and Honduras on Wednesday. Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh met his Chinese counterpart Dong Jun on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in Qingdao, China, seeking a permanent solution to the border dispute between the two nations. The defence ministers were, however, unable to adopt a joint statement at the end of their talks due to a lack of consensus on referring to terrorism. The China-led regional body was founded in 2001 and has China, Russia, India, Pakistan, Iran and Central Asian members as nations. In a troubling incident in India, 5 tigers, a mother and its cub were found dead in a wildlife sanctuary in a single day. The deaths were reported in the Chamarajanagar district in Karnataka. It triggered an outcry among conservatives and wildlife enthusiasts. Preliminary suspicion points to poisoning as the cause of death. According to forest officials, the tiger carcasses were discovered on Wednesday evening during a routine patrol by the forest staff. State Forest Minister announced the formation of high-level investigation team to probe the deaths. The minister has directed the committee to submit a detailed report soon. He also instructed that criminal cases be registered against those found responsible. The Diocese of Arlington, Virginia recently celebrated the ordination of 12 new priests, marking the second largest class in its 50-year history. And newly ordained priests who come from diverse backgrounds, including law, counseling and engineering, were called to the priesthood after discerning their vocation. They enter the priesthood at a time just as the first American Pope begins his papacy. At the same time, there remains a shortage of clergy like them in US, a number that has been declining since the 70s. Hundreds gathered to witness the ordination mass at the Cathedral of St. Thomas.
Excellent.
Mr. Michael C. Sampson.
Present.
The dollar drifted lower, hovering near its lowest level in 3.5 years against the euro and the sterling. Traders are wagering on deeper US rate cuts while awaiting trade deals ahead of a July deadline for President Donald Trump's tariffs. With the geopolitical tremors of the Iran-Israel conflict in the rearview, market focus this week has been on US monetary policy. Trump has repeatedly attacked Powell and called for rate cuts this year, stoking investor worries about the slow erosion of US central bank's independence and credibility. Investor attention will also be on progress on trade deals ahead of the July 9 deadline for Trump's reciprocal tariffs. Emerging market currencies also got a lift from the beaten-down dollar, the Taiwan dollar surging to its strongest level since April 2022. Oil is set to fall this week with the Iran-Israel ceasefire holding and easing concerns over West Asian supply risks. However, Brent crude futures rose 0.5% in early trade to settle above $68 a barrel, while US oil trades above $65 a barrel. Both benchmarks are on track for a 12% loss this week. Japan's benchmark Nikkei 225 climbed 1.38% to a 6-month high and crossed the 40,000 mark for the first time since the 7th of Jan, while the broader Topix index advanced 1.22%. The country's capital city saw core consumer price index excluding fresh food and fuel rise 3.1% year-on-year in June. That's lower than the 3.6% increase seen in the previous month and the 3.3% gain penciled by economists polled by Reuters. Other Asian markets also rose after White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt downplayed the impending start of the tariff deals, which have weighed on investor sentiment. July 8th is when the so-called Liberation Day tariffs are set to take effect after a 90-day pause, and July 9th is the deadline for an EU deal to avoid 50% tariffs. Indian markets are holding strong with benchmark indices hovering near all-time highs, reflecting growing investor confidence in the country's economic trajectory. The robust corporate earnings, resilient domestic consumption and steady inflows from the foreign institutional investors have fueled the rally despite global headwinds. India's macroeconomic fundamentals, stable inflation, strong GDP growth and government-driven infrastructure spending continue to offer a compelling growth story. The equity market's resilience amid geopolitical tensions and interest rate concerns is drawing both domestic and global attention, positioning India as one of the most attractive emerging market destinations in 2025. Gold fell this morning and is heading for a second weekly loss as the Israel-Iran truce weighed on prices. Markets are now eyeing US inflation data for clues on the Federal Reserve's interest rate trajectory. But experts say this week's dip is due to the Israel-Iran peace deal. Some analysts are also forecasting that prices will consolidate with a slight downward bias and are likely to stay around current levels. Spot silver was trading lower at $36.63 per ounce today, while platinum fell 1.8% after hitting its highest level in nearly 11 years. Palladium bucked the trend to gain 1.4% and hit its highest level since October 2024.